This video is being sponsored by my patrons on Patreon, including Yamix. Without my patrons and my fans on Deviantart and YouTube, I wouldn't be able to make content better for all of you, so I'd like to say thank you. If you're at all interested in funding my efforts into making these videos, while at the same time getting things like works in progress art before I post them on Twitter, sneak peeks to the next video, like actual video footage, and Patreon exclusive polls, which can only happen if I have more than 1 or 2 patrons, look down in the description below. I hope you enjoy the show.
Previously on Red Reasoning.
This has been your future evil overlord, Crimson Glow, and...
Like you can call yourself that now.
What? No, you're not...
Real? Have you forgotten me so easily, child? I've seen you at your worst, and I've seen you at your best. And this is truly your lowest point.
I don't need you to be villainous. I can do it myself. I have my own way.
You've lost your true focus, little Scarlet. You should remember who you are, what you are. Let me teach you.
And now, the continuation.
What do you want?
I'd ask you the same question. It's been months since I came to you and offered my help, but all you've done is squander your gifts by staying in your comfort zone. Are you backing out by any chance?
Look, what you said back then was true, and I do want more, but I can't just abandon what little following I do have for something I didn't even want originally. Getting more power isn't the only thing I need to do, and you've been bugging me on and off about it.
Spend an extended period of time not existing. You'd get tired of nothing too.
What I'm trying to say is I need to finish some things up. I need to lay down a solid foundation for my subscribers. If I'm going to take a risk like this, I have to...
Brevity, Scarlet. Use it.
If I'm going to do something for you, you have to do something for me. Like a review I had planned.
Seems reasonable of you.
It's a Season 8 opener to My Little Pony tackling special education, learning inefficiencies, corruption in the public school apparatus, and casual racism.
You wouldn't dare.
That's fine by me. I guess if you can't do this, I don't need you after all. I'm perfectly capable of realizing my destiny alone. What was it that happens to you again?
Fine. You win, I'll play along, but I'm holding you to your promise. After this, no turning back.
Deal.
Very well. What is this episode you're referring to?
So, when it comes to My Little Pony up until this season, we've basically come across a few key things about the magic friendship. 1, that friendship is something that you learn from experience, not from books. And 2, there's an obvious disconnect in the culture surrounding Equestria where friendship isn't really a thing, or at least it's not a big thing.
Friends for 1,000 moons!
So, what does Twilight do?
We are gonna open a school.
Well, give her this. She's determined.
Hello, every pony, I'm Crimson Glow, and this is Sanguine, my... What do I even call you, really?
Your inner voice seems the most neutral term.
Right. Well, anyway, as you can probably guess, today we'll be talking about School Daze.
Possibly the worst opener of the series to date.
I don't think that's a fair statement to say. At least before we get into the who, the what, the where, the why, and the how.
What's the point in talking about it to begin with, since you're so behind on other episodes?
Because if I took everything as it came, I'd be broke, and the integrity of my videos wouldn't be as good as I would like them to be.
Keep telling yourself that, Scarlet.
So let's start with a brief synopsis of what happened in this opener. After the adventures of the MLP movie, the main 6 find that the map has now expanded to accommodate the next misadventures that come up later. This makes Twilight realize that she simply must make a school of friendship for every creature.
But that makes no sense. Every moment in the series, the basic moral overall is that you can't learn about friendship through books or through a classroom. Here, books are being supplemented when Twilight published the diary entries, and the only characters that got it were the children.
Well, the thing is that that's not entirely true. And it does have its real-world equivalent in special education and social studies. Disclaimer, I'm speaking from my own personal experiences. Teaching methods have changed since I've been in these counseling sessions, and each school has a different way of helping students with these issues. Special education is usually used as a way to help students with extra help, whether it be tutoring, test taking, or other academic assistance. There was a second stage called social studies, where students were taught extra lessons about social behavior that weren't inherent to the special education students. This could be something as intense as anger management, or something as benign as reading body language or talking to counselors.
So you're basically saying that this entire school would be the equivalent of a special education school?
More or less, yeah.
Huh. That's admittedly interesting. But, back on topic. Twilight then opens the school with the EEA, the Equestrian Education Association. The head of the association, Chancellor Naysayer, is breathing down her neck as she tries to follow the system that already exists for her brand new concept of schooling.
Meanwhile, while that's happening, we meet the young six who are attending the school, but the problem is that they aren't actually learning anything by going through the classes, but instead by hanging out together, which causes more trouble when we find out that Naysayer, for lack of better wording, is, just plain racist.
To defend ponies from dangerous who don't have our best interests at heart.
Finally, someone from my time that I can relate to in the show other than Star Swirl before he got PC.
I feel very concerned right now.
Get on with your review, Mayor.
We're going to talk about that later. Anyway, after the school was shut down for racist reasons,
Among other things.
Twilight sulks because she feels like she's a failure to society and all of that jazz, but soon realizes with the help of Starlight Glimmer that the system that already exists can't work with the school because it's teaching something entirely new to students. Princess Twilight says, "I'm going to do whatever I gosh darn please," and tries to get the band back together by trying to get the students back together.
But what's this? They've been murdered.
What? No, they're just missing. What the hell?
Nothing fun ever happens in this show.
It turns out that the young six were just hanging out together and planning on living together after, I don't know, a week or more of getting to know each other. The kids need saving, the main six saves them from the killer porcupines, and everyone tells Chancellor Naysayer that he can go eat a carrot because this system is broken. And we get our opener of Season 8.
So, after that mess, what should we go over first?
Let's start with the writing, which definitely has a lot of good points about how alternative teaching don't necessarily get taught the same way as regular academic subjects, and about how people in power, while having maybe the best intentions for others, may not have the best motivations for all. I do like the connection of the school-time friends using the young main six, as well as the differing perspectives from students to teachers. The pacing was really good, and I also really like how Starlight Glimmer proved herself as a good counselor, which she ends up being later in the episode, so long as it's convenient for the plot.
However, as much as I love Naysayer on a personal level, his motivations seem too blatant with no subtlety, and the only other good part about his character is that he's able to twist this mistake from the young six in order to shut down the school. And that he's voiced by the Brain from Pinky and the Brain.
I have put up with this bullshit for too long.
Otherwise, he's just a jerk that's not really top tier for villains in the show, which might change if he ever comes back.
To add to that, the lesson is really muddled here because we've been taught since the very beginning of this show that friendship isn't something you read out of a book or in a teaching environment, but through experience. However, since watching other episodes where the teaching methods are shown to be less about note-taking and homework and more about group projects and field trips.
What about the horribly done musical number?
Well, to me at least, the musical number was necessary for the plot to progress through a story like this. A musical transition would be the fastest and most entertaining way to show the time lapse between what's clearly working for the students and teachers and what needs to happen to follow the standards. The song isn't really great, and it feels like it needed to cook for a little longer or just needed to start from scratch because it's pretty rough. Now let's talk about some of the other characters that came up during this two-part episode, starting with the Young Six, or however you want to call them. A lot of people characterize them as basically certain characters from the main six, but either morphed together or some type of diet version. I can see why. For example, Owlicious is a mixture of Fluttershy and Twilight, with Fluttershy's shyness and Twilight's book smarts. Or with characters like Gallus and Smolder that act very similarly to Rainbow Dash.
Yes, but then there are just characters that are blatantly ripping off of characters like Silverstream, who's just Pinkie Pie with wings.
Oh, so she's Surprise.
In a sense, yes.
Otherwise, their characters aren't really that similar to the main six, with the exception of some comparisons.
Gallus and Smolder being one extreme, the toxic influence types with hearts of gold. Smolder is more of the tough guy with a far more competitive nature, as she acts the most like Ember than Rainbow Dash. Or perhaps she's more of a bad boy Rainbow Dash. Much like Rainbow Dash, though, she seems to act more fun-loving and playful than originally let off the episodes. Gallus, on the other hand, coming off with that griffin rudeness as his outlook on everyone around him is cold and untrusting. Something that is shown to be frequent in the Griffin culture, but also through Gilda. Then again, he is her cousin? As the opener goes on, he shows a lot of his caring nature with what could be perceived as a slight fear of what friendship could open up for him.
On the other side of the equation is the more optimistic side of things. Yona and Silverstream. Silverstream's the niece of Queen Nova from the MLP movie, which shows that she's a more hyperactive version of Skystar, if that's possible. She's really bubbly, sweet, almost never has a down moment, and she's excited for every moment in life, and it's really infectious. There are, however, times where her personality overtakes some scenes, but they use her so sparingly she doesn't take over. Yona, on the other hoof, is a happy-go-lucky character with a lot of pride in Yak culture. There is a point, especially before the end of the first half, where she seems to have a bit of a superiority complex with her culture. Her quirk seems to be that she trips over her braids, constantly causing her to be a fire hazard for everyone in the faculty. Though during the end of the opener, she finally showed that while yes, she still has a lot of pride in her culture, as all the characters do, she now has more of a healthy acceptance of others around her.
Then we have the more balanced characters that play straight man to our two extremes, starting with Sandbar, who seems like the most relaxed out of the six for reasons other than possibly getting into some pony stash of indica. Most of the time, he seems to take the form of Twilight and Applejack with his level-headed and caring nature, though I still wouldn't say that he's the leader.
There's also this sweet little cinnamon roll, Aloysius. As stated before, she is the shyest of the group, slowly coming out of her shell as the episode goes on. It's not until later episodes we see her fully develop as a character, or at least show more character on her own, but in the later half of the opener we do see that she's the smartest of the group. So she's a precious little snowflake. She's a precious little shy nerd who finally does allow herself to open up to all of her friends.
Then there are the main six in contrast, whom we know already, but it's interesting to see them in a teacher role. It's not the first time that they've been put into this position, though. Some characters have done it better than others. Most of the focus here is on Twilight trying to formulate her school in the strict codes of EEA. Something that any creative knows can be a serious hindrance when inventing something new.
Wow, that was surprisingly insightful, Sanguine. Well done.
Yes, I seem to have gained any brain you had left for this show.
I get it, alright, let's just keep moving. Throughout this opener, we can see the constant struggle of restriction, and it creates a great conflict that I really enjoy. I do like the idea of Starlight as a counselor for the school, and having her show that with Twilight of all people when she's down. Though I don't know if I would say that Starlight is ready for it yet, and may have needed to fill in more of a tutoring role than a counselor role at first. But that's already being taken over by the CMC later, so...
There's Chancellor Naysay. He's painted as blatantly racist. Now, a lot of people point this out and say that this is a bad thing, that no one would actually be this cruel and dictating in points of power in a kid's show. Now, I happen to agree with them, but then again, your generation is too soft for my liking.
Here's the thing, though. It's happening in real life. I've rarely seen race brought up in a show where a character was actively discriminatory to a character because of race, gender, or sexuality that hasn't been played out for a joke until the mid-2000s. We have characters like Suki pointing out to Sokka the juvenile sexism portrayed in normal media where, yes, they're warriors, but they are also girls. I think that this, while important to have in the show because it's important to show that yes, this does happen, and yes, the system can be rigged by those in power, but even more importantly, showing that no matter the race, the gender, the identity, or the struggle, that we may not always win. But change doesn't happen until you make that change and stand up for what you believe in. I think a better example of this lesson is shown in the original Teen Titans episode Trog, where Starfire is being discriminated by this big shot hero named Valior, and none of the team notices until Starfire tells Cyborg, someone who would most likely know just what it's like to be put in this situation, sure, at the end of the day, the world is saved, the big bad is defeated, but when it comes to Valior, he's never going to be resolved because once is never going to be enough. That's what I think they were trying to do here, but it might be more fitting when he is trying to do his job and does find several things that are actually wrong with the school. Naysay may be one of the weakest villains in the series, with nothing quite as cunning as Tirek or as fun as Discord, but he is important. What he represents is probably one of the most relevant and important things that we need to teach kids.
If only we listened to their advice. If only saying it would make it so. Some things don't change in a day. Some things take decades, centuries, eons. But that doesn't mean that the society will.
I know that this isn't the greatest opener in the world. The animation errors get sloppy, the writing in some bits could have been done better, the song could have been better, the writing-wise in the second half, not a lot happens to make a big difference other than Twilight saying, "Bucket, I make the rules," but I do think that it's not fair to say that this is the worst one ever. It's definitely not the best, but the worst is really stretching it.
Well said. Now, shall we continue our planning?
Right. This has been your future evil overlord, Crimson Glow.
And whom she calls Sanguine.
And let's fight for a better tomorrow.
Schoolhouse rocking, the chip on the block of your favorite schoolhouse romance.
How do I reach these kids?
What? What is it?
We've done this your way. Now, fulfill your end of the bargain.
Fine. What do we do first?
I require something to help focus your power. An item.